time with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on January the 29th in the year of our Lord 2026, and I've got some great information for you. So let's just jump over here to Mertech on Rumble. This is the video we're working on tonight, episode 1822. Let's get into this. Close out the live chat, slide down here, and click the Show More button to expand out the description box. And we have information from Vince Dow, Sky News Australia, Glenn Beck, and Wendy Bell Radio. But I do have some shout outs to get before we get started here. WBS reposted my episode 1821, and Uncloudy, Foxy Grandma, Jeanette J66, and Debbie BS commented on my episode 1861. Debbie BS also commented on my extra 604A, 604B, and 604C. So thank you very much, folks, for reposting my video and your comments. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I definitely appreciate your support. So let me give this a thumbs up. Debbie BS gave me a comment that she tried a couple of times to repost some of my videos, and for some reason Rumble wouldn't let her. Here again, I think Rumble is being attacked constantly, trying to hack into their system and get it all screwed up, because Rumble is one of the few platforms that I believe you can tell the truth on. So, the deep state doesn't like that. So that's why they're trying to hack in and cause problems for the viewers and the producers. Okay, let's jump back up here. Excuse me. Vince Dow, leftist narrative collapses on ICE shooting as CNN admits stunning new details on Alex Pretti's past. Pretti's past. Let's take a listen and see what that's all about. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. Let me jump back over here. For some reason I didn't get that. Let me come over here. I didn't get the link updated, so we'll just take it from the top here from Mertech.com, because all these videos that I share with you are videos that I've posted on Mertech.com. So we'll just watch this.
Over the weekend and started all of the... So CNN ironically released an expose today that further confirms, if you couldn't already tell, that Alex Pretti, the man who was shot by Border Patrol agents over the weekend and started all of this outrage and chaos, was not actually an ordinary peaceful protester or random citizen who found himself in the firing line of immigration agents for no reason, as liberals tried to claim. As a matter of fact, we're talking about someone who is a serial leftist agitator that just the week before found himself in a physical altercation and fight with ICE agents after he tried to engage in similar behavior and even broke a rib in the process. And yet, for whatever reason, the very next week, with some strange thoughts in his head, decides to do the same exact thing, except this time around bring a loaded 9mm handgun, and you know the rest of the story. Why does that matter? Because number one, I think the intention, if you want to speculate what he was there to do, is certainly relevant. But secondly, here's what's arguably most important. You're talking about a situation that, yes, I agree, should have never happened to begin with. You know why? Because the week before, he should have already been placed in jail. That's something that would have happened, likely, if Minneapolis police either did their job up until 2 seconds ago and stopped handing over control of the streets to this anarchy and the mob behavior, or secondly, perhaps, I know they're going to call us authoritarian, but hey, probably should have just been arrested by federal agents to begin with, but you know how all of this stuff goes. So I want to bring you this story here today, and again, show you sort of the full context of who this individual is, because these details are extremely relevant. Keep in mind, this is another person that is being crowned as a liberal hero. This is exactly how Democrats want their voters to behave, and I think that information is something that should be kept in mind. We'll tell you all about it. We'll show you what even President Trump has to say about it in Iowa here tonight. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate the support, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all the latest news and coverage. And that said, take a listen to what we're now learning about who Alex Pretti was. Again, not just some normal guy who ended up here for no reason.
Pretti had a physical encounter with federal agents about a week before he was shot and killed by law enforcement. Sources tell CNN that Pretti broke a rib when a group of federal officers tackled him while he was protesting. Priscilla Alvarez is breaking that story for us. What else are you hearing, Priscilla?
Dana, we're learning more details along with my colleague Jeff Winter about what exactly transpired a week before Alex Pretti was shot in Minneapolis and died this past weekend. Now, in this earlier incident, he stopped his car after observing ICE agents chasing what he described as a family on foot and began shouting and blowing his whistle. Pretti later told one of these sources that 5 agents tackled him and one leaned on his back, appearing to leave him with a broken rib. According to this source, and I'm quoting here, that source said, quote, that day he thought he was going to die. Now, Pretti was later given medication that is consistent with treating a broken rib, according to records reviewed by CNN. Sources also say that he was known to federal law enforcement, though it's unclear whether it was this incident or another with federal agents that they knew of him. It's also unclear whether the officers who tackled him on Saturday knew who he was. What we do know, however, is that federal immigration officers have been collecting personal information of protesters and agitators within the context of what the Department of Homeland Security has warned is repeated threats towards officers as they are conducting immigration enforcement operations. In fact, just Tuesday, the department also publicized an online tip form to share information about people allegedly harassing ICE officers. We've also heard Tom Homan, the White House border czar, say that a database would be created for those who are arrested for impeding law enforcement. But thus far, in our queries to the Department of Homeland Security, they have said that no such database exists.
Unbelievable. There's a lot more to peel back there. Thank you so much for bringing us that news, Priscilla.
Okay, so let's review those details here. First and foremost, we know it was not the first time that he showed up to an active crime scene, a dangerous situation with the intended goal, with his whistle, getting in their face of impeding federal law enforcement, which is highly illegal, and hence why I'm going to repeat this. He should have been in jail already. You want to talk about a situation that never should have had to happen? I totally agree. Number one, Minneapolis police should have all along been separating the quote-unquote protesters, aka leftist agitators and domestic terrorists, from the Border Patrol and ICE agents as they conduct their operations, because that's a basic public safety thing, regardless of whatever you think personally about the deportations. But then secondly, had that rule of law been enforced, this guy would have already been either in prison on some type of bail probation, restraining order, so that way he doesn't go on to repeat the same dangerous and illegal behavior the very next week. Secondly, obviously in that moment, I don't think that, Border Patrol or either side has time to discern each other's intentions. It's just a case of, hey, self-defense or not. But if we want to kind of delve into what was his motive, what was he there that day to do, he obviously did show up with a gun, and technically he did have a concealed carry permit, but many things about what he did that day actually were illegal. He wasn't even carrying an ID and all that. But okay, if you want to speculate on his motive, right? He said the week before, apparently according to these sources, after that whole situation with ICE, he thought he was going to die. Then he decides the very next week, after, being in a very scary situation, he thought, he should have died that day, whatever, to go do it again, and this time do it again, bringing a gun. Obviously, at this point, we can't just ask him what he planned to do with that gun. But again, you want to kind of further delve into this theory. He seemed like he was there up to no good. I think his intentions likely were a lot more than to just, quote unquote, peacefully protest. I think that detail is actually very relevant if you want to litigate this even more. Again, none of it really matters in the situation legally of, hey, Border Patrol, What do they see in that moment? He had a gun. They're screaming gun. There seems to be potential evidence now that the gun might have accidentally discharged. We showed you the footage of him reaching for the holster and pulling out what appeared to be his extra magazine in that moment. It all happens too fast, right? There was a reasonable fear for their life. There's a reason why Border Patrol agents acted in self-defense there, but okay. All of that said, if you want to kind of do the post-litigation thing where we ask, oh, what was he there to do? Did he have peaceful intentions? Actually, the evidence right now that CNN is releasing, maybe to make Border Patrol look bad, I'm not exactly sure, seems to suggest the opposite, right? Seems to suggest he was kind of this crazed person that, got some type of thrill, or he had something of a wish that he wanted that to happen, what he wanted to be a martyr, whatever. I don't know. Just more details to keep in mind there. And then lastly, you're talking about someone who was already on a government watch list intended for individuals who are engaging in threats and dangerous behavior against federal agents. And then he does what? Proceeds to show up that day carrying a gun and engaging in the same exact behavior that apparently just broke his ribs the week before. Doesn't seem like a very normal behavior, but it does seem like that of what's the very organized insurrectionists and agitators that we're really dealing with here in the streets, right? It's not just a peaceful protest movement organically coming from normal citizens. No, these people are highly organized and highly sinister, as we've been trying to tell you.
Is this a pullback?
I don't think it's a pullback. It's a little bit of a change. Everybody in this room that has a business, you make little changes. Bovino is very good, but he's a pretty out there kind of a guy. And in some cases, that's good. Maybe it wasn't good here. But you have to understand, when I watch some of the people that I've been watching over the last few weeks, these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid agitators. These people aren't normal, like, that, they're incensed about anything. How do you get incensed when you go into a state and you're taking criminals out? You're taking monsters out, murderers. We had 11,888 murderers let into our country by other countries, by Biden with his open border stupid policy. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You talk about bad policy. Open borders where people were coming, so the whole world, the Congo, Venezuela, all over the world, they're letting people in from their prisons and they're feeding them into the United States. And they're murderers and they're drug dealers and they're everything else you can think of, every bad name you can think of. And they let them in by the millions. We closed the border. We have nobody coming into our country anymore.
You do know they're paid agitators, right? They're paid. They get paid. Do you ever see their signs? We used to have protests and you'd have guys making a sign in a basement. These are all paid agitators. That's all they are. They get paid to go and they don't even know when they interview them, why are you here? I don't know. They have no idea. They're paid insurrectionists, really, in some cases. They're sickos.
So look, I think the fact that all of America can agree on is that this situation shouldn't have happened, and ones like it, likewise, should be prevented from happening. But the why is very important, right? The why is not because federal immigration law shouldn't exist. No, rather, first and foremost, in this particular case, you're talking about someone who should have already been in jail to begin with. But hey, even on non-immigration related matters, this is a story we see time and time again from liberal cities. It turns out that a lot of America's problems are being caused by repeat offenders who already have gotten themselves in trouble with the law, but for the sake of looseness or criminal justice reform, they're let out of jail, they're released back onto the streets due to no cash bail, or they downgrade it to a misdemeanor, or they drop the charges altogether, and then this is the situation you get. It turns out when people are showing you exactly who they are the first time, you should believe them. But on a wider picture, I'm sure you've also likewise heard a lot of conversation recently about ICE potentially changing their tactics, right? As we speak, Greg Bovino and Border Patrol are being pulled out of Minneapolis. Tom Homan now is in charge of that operation. What's that going to mean? Here's what I want to say. Is that I think clearly, given everything you've seen in the past few weeks, but arguably for the past year, ever since this started, let's remember it's not the first time. We know about Portland, we know about Los Angeles even before it, that it's time for ICE to change their tactics, right? But again, the why is very important, and so is the how. So what do I mean when I say ICE needs to change their tactics? Well, I think that we basically now, despite whatever temporary agreement or concession you get from Tim Walz or Jacob Frey, understand that as it currently exists, as we kind of do this publicly and say, here's Operation Minneapolis, we're going to send ICE to Minneapolis, they're very publicly seen across the city, that when you do things as you're currently doing, you're going to get left-wing agitators and domestic terrorists who basically will stalk you around the city, swarm you, and then that's how these situations happen. And by the way, they're doing so with full coordination and assistance from the state government, who either engages in it themselves, check those signal chats, by the way, and in the cases where even they don't, the police will stand by and basically allow all of these scenarios to happen. Now, you can sit there and scream at the Democrat states, but I mean, realizing that's kind of not working, right? Every time we ask, hey, can law enforcement just do their jobs? Look how hard that was to get to happen in Minneapolis. We need to understand, right? The Democrat states are not playing ball, and yes, these people will act like terrorists and they will chase ICE agents around in the streets. So as I put there, what's the solution to that? Well, honestly, there's two options. Number one, you could go all the way and invoke the Insurrection Act and just start mass arresting the agitators in the streets. But if you want to say that's too far, America's not ready for that. It's the authoritarian option. Okay, here's my then, I guess, pragmatic political solution as I put here. The answer is that ICE needs to actually start operating like the secret police that liberals think they are, right? And what do we mean by that? As I put here, there's no reason that liberal activists should have any clue anymore where ICE is, much less have this ability to immediately text their little signal chat and get hundreds of protesters to immediately start swarming them, harassing them, and ultimately impeding with the reason why they're there, which is most often to remove a dangerous, criminal, illegal alien. So, I mean, notably, right? For instance, when the FBI is after someone, the general public doesn't know. And sure, the residents of the neighborhood might be able to see it, but, there's this degree of operating covertly, operating secretly. Look, I'm not an expert on it, but I would say whatever the FBI kind of does, you need to start applying those tactics and those strategies to ICE agents, right? Again, no reason. Got to figure it out. We have a lot of funding now, right, under Big Beautiful Bill and all that. Okay. Figure out a way for ICE to be able to operate without these liberals and these random people in group chats, right? Knowing where they are and being able to chase them around the city. And as I put here, right? I mean, the U.S. government's able to go into foreign countries and figure out exactly where a terrorist is living and operate and conduct the capture or the strike, whatever they need to do. If that infrastructure is now necessary domestically in America to find where illegals are without basically anyone else knowing, then look, the left wing can use a civil libertarian argument all they want, but that's the point where we're at, right? Where, again, if you want these situations to stop happening, then the strategies of ICE need to get more sophisticated. Absolutely, that's true. As I put here as well, we also, honestly, at this point, should stop targeting one city at a time. Right? Because that's kind of been the strategy thus far. Okay, it's known this month ICE is going to Los Angeles, then they're going to Charlotte. Hey, they're going to go to Minneapolis. All that needs to end, right? Because why is that? Because when liberals know, first of all, ICE is coming to the city, right? We publicly announce it. And by the way, they spend several weeks there. What does that do? That gives them way too much time to organize all of this activity, and that's how the situation escalates, right? The longer ICE and Border Patrol stay in a city known to the public, the longer that leftists are going to organize more and more. So what do we need to do? Not announce beforehand where we're going, right? We need to spread out all over the country, essentially, and basically keep this element of surprise and unpredictability. And by the way, I understand it's going to take time, but under Big Beautiful Bill, ICE and DHS is basically going to get the funding of a major world military. You absolutely should be able to use that money to spread out the manpower all around America to where, hey, one day ICE did a major raid in Los Angeles. And then by the time leftists go out and immediately or start protesting, the next day it's in Minneapolis. And basically you always keep them on their toes. There's an unpredictability. There's an element of surprise that, first of all, makes it harder for the illegal aliens to anticipate something. Because you have to imagine, right? Even if you're an illegal, hey, you hear ICE is coming to Minneapolis and you're in Minneapolis, you're probably going to leave. Keep that that element of surprise. But then secondly, as it pertains to these left-wing agitators, you need to make a situation where Alex Pretti, Renee Good, any of these individuals can't find you to begin with. By the time they show up to the scene, you're already gone. Understand?
Yep. Great information, I think. Great. It would be nice if that's the way they would plan it. He's got some good details there. Okay, I'm going to move on. If you want to see more of this, there's like 5 minutes left. The link, I fixed it in the description box, so you can go down there and check that out. But as it is, this video does come from Vince Dow. I am subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing to me. I want to move on and get as much information in here as I can. All right, let's jump back here. And yeah, I've been doing some chatting here with Uncloudy. Hi, Uncloudy. Glad to see you made it. Foxy Grandma, M41 Coco, and Debbie BS. Go ahead and give me a chat, folks. Let me know what you think. Okay, Sky News Australia. Okay, now I post Sky News Australia's information on Murtec.com, but I had to share this today because this is a news network in Australia talking about Obama's hypocrisy called out as Barack and Michelle create hysteria online over ICE. Australia. You won't see this on CNN or MS Now or CBS, ABC, NBC, whatever. But let's take a listen to this.
Now, former President Barack Obama has been busy online whipping up hysteria and moral panic about the Trump administration's deportation program. But let's not forget, he was very much in favor of such policies and passionately defended them when he was in power. In fact, he defended the right of a country to deport every single person there illegally. This is Obama during his first term.
Ultimately, our nation, like all nations, has the right and obligation to control its borders and set laws for residency and citizenship. And no matter how decent they are, no matter their reasons, the 11 million who broke these laws should be held accountable.
Seems quite simple, Army, but these days, if you make that same argument, you'll be labelled a white supremacist or fascist.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you and I are people of color, and I guess we're also white supremacists somehow. I don't know how that works. Let me read you a quote, if you may indulge me for a moment. This is from Obama's DHS policy memo. The plan is to deter illegal border crossings and remove unauthorized immigrants before they become integrated into U.S. communities. That could have been written by the Trump administration, and he would have been vilified for something like that, okay? I don't know where Obama, look, I wasn't a big fan of Obama then, but he was right on this issue. Look, President Obama, he deported 3 million illegal immigrants, okay? It was why he got the name the deporter in chief. The Trump administration in the first term only deported 1 million, okay? Trump is Bush League compared to what Obama did during his time in office, okay? This is where we're at in this thing. But the goal is more immigrants, right? This is what it is. They want more illegal immigration. That's not it's not a bug. That's the feature of what they're trying to do. And the reason, and by the way, it is one of the, I will tell you this, it is one of the great colossal demographic mistakes that the Democrats have done. I've said this before on this show, is that they've made a huge miscalculation because when Hispanics in particular come to this country, they vote, first generation Hispanics vote 60 to 75% for the Democrats because they're focused on issues like immigration and healthcare on the border, right? Those things and welfare benefits. Those are the things the first generation immigrants care about. But what do we see as time goes on? The Hispanic vote has moved Republican, and to the point where it goes from 60, 75% Democrat to Trump won the Latin vote in the last election. So they're making a massive miscalculation on this. Okay, aside from the moral issues that we have of people breaking our laws and coming in, which they shouldn't do and they should be deported, they're simply making a mistake, and I'm here for it.
Now let's move on to some other issues. President Trump has renewed his threats to attack Iran, saying time is running out for the Iranian regime to make a deal on nuclear weapons. But the Islamic Republic has hit back with its own threats, claiming Iran's response will be immediate and unprecedented, and that the regime would target Israel and all supporters of the aggressors. Army, the Iranian regime is good at making threats, but the only unprecedented attacks we've seen recently has been against their own peoples. Tens of thousands have been slaughtered.
Yeah, sorry, color me skeptical whenever I hear the Iranian regime talk about unprecedented attacks. We're going to make you pay, Israel, United States. Yeah, I've heard this story before, and it really hasn't come to pass. So I'm not particularly worried about the response they're going to have towards Israel and the United States. But I am particularly worried as what they will do to their own people. Look, they've learned from the playbook of the Assad regime. There is no limit to the villainy of what they're willing to do to their own people. The Assads had killed hundreds of thousands of people. We're getting, by the way, the latest numbers are incredible. They're talking about 30,000 people have been killed just in recent days, never mind the totality of how many people were murdered. I would not be shocked if the number at the end of the day is hitting 100,000 or more. There is no limit to the amount of bloodshed they're willing to entertain to stay in power, unfortunately. But the alternative of if we're able to flip this regime, and I think we're closer than we ever have been, there have been 6 major uprisings in the last 25 years against this regime, and the prior 20 years there were 0. So we're definitely moving in the direction of the people saying we're just done. This compact that we had between the regime and us is over. These are not Arabs. They are Persian, and their view of the world and the West and the United States is far different than the Arab world. They are pro-Western. They are actually many times pro-Israel, pro-Semitic. And I think if we're able to flip this regime, that's a cost we should be willing to pay, because we're going to move from one of the most implacable enemies the West has to a great Western ally, an ally they're going to become. And we know this because we have history with this. Okay, the Iranian regime shared military and intelligence with the United States and Israel and Europe. And that's what we can do. We can now move from being one of the worst enemies we have in the region to being a bulwark of democracy and of Western support. So the cost, I think, is worth it. I'm not saying we should have boots in the ground. We shouldn't. But there are very limited options. And I would not be in I don't want to be in the president's boots because he doesn't have a lot of options for them. But I think taking action is better than taking no action, because the positive results are really immeasurable.
Now, Ami, before you go, it was Holocaust Remembrance Day early this week, and you've been on the streets of Paris speaking to young folk after a study showed disturbing numbers of Europeans are ignorant about the Holocaust.
Holocaust, I don't know.
The Shoah? Ring a bell at all?
No, not really.
The Shoah?
Tu sais ce que c'est l'Holocauste? La Shoah?
No.
Non?
Non du tout.
Non?
No.
No.
I don't know.
Ami, is this a failure of the education system, a failure of parenting, the culture? Why have only 50% of young Parisians heard of the Holocaust?
Yes, and more. Super disturbing. Yeah, I made this video because I heard about this study and I wanted to see if it was actually true and to bring that study to life. So I went there and asked these questions myself. It is deeply disturbing of the lack of knowledge they have of the Holocaust. It was under 50% knew what it was at all, and almost no one knew that 6 million Jews were killed. Like I think one person of all the people I spoke to came across that. Even more disturbing, there were a few people I came across who knew what it was and refused to go on camera because they said, we don't want to make Jews seem like victims. And that plays into it also. The idea, it goes against their narrative of Jews as victims when they're trying to demonize Jews in Israel. They don't want to learn about it. They don't want this to be a topic of conversation because that's not the narrative they're trying to push through. It's actually quite disturbing. And furthermore, I have to say something else, that what the Democrats are doing by comparing the Nazis to federal agents is denuding the power of the Holocaust. Okay, it's also trivializing the Holocaust. This is one of the reasons why it's a problem, because people are like, look, how bad can the Nazis be? They're being compared to federal agents. Okay, all of this is a confluence of things coming together for us to forget that 6 million Jews were put in ovens not long ago at all. not long ago at all.
Tell you about what we found in Red State today. This is so great. We are learning a lot more about the people who were in the anti-ICE signal chat groups that Cam Higbee revealed. He infiltrated this a few days ago, wasn't it earlier this week? They are now finding the organization of the group, the donors, the significance of the address in which Alex Pretti was obstructing federal officers. There is a ton of information. The groups are highly sophisticated, according to Red State. They're being set up geographically. Listen to this. Within the city of Minneapolis, they're generally being divided by city council district. Isn't that interesting? But it also covers St. Paul, Bloomington, and other suburbs. They start a new chat every day, delete the prior day's chat because Signal is encrypted and it's really difficult. Once it's deleted, then you just can't recover it. Signal also has no screenshot functions, which is why I think Higbee, recorded it on another phone that he saw. But there's all kinds of things. You're starting to see emojis next to names, and they indicate, because there's shifts, around the clock shifts, and they're indicating, for instance, there's one with a car and they're mobile patrol, one with a phone and that's dispatch. One with a plate and knife and fork. I don't know why this is it, but it means a license plate checker. Okay. There's a medic. There's an aftercare provider. It is very well financed and very well organized. Now, we had Data Republican on yesterday, and she on Sunday evening published a spreadsheet of 4,000 plus donors and their possible identities and she made it all downloadable. She took a non-redacted spreadsheet and she sent it to the FBI and other federal authorities. In one of the files revealed by Cam Higbee, it shows that people who are directing money to a website, Stand With Minnesota, it directs donors to a campaign run by Tending the Soil on Chuffed. I got a lot to say about Tending the Soil, but the campaign is hosted by Chuffed. First donation came in from a big Canadian-based community organizer who's part of the leadership and specializes in funding. So we now know also there's one example, there's more, but one, a central figure in raising money for this is from out of the country. So foreigners are playing a role in all of this. Also, some of the names of the people that are involved, there is a non-trivial number, according to Red State, of judges and elected officials who are affiliated with the current insurrection. Also, Alex Pretti, the man who was killed on Saturday, he was a member of this group. One of his neighbors confirmed that. And so was Renee Good. Then you also have the Minneapolis elected officials. Listen to this. Representative Brad Tebke, he coordinates the Scott County Ice Watch Signal Chat. Scott County is just outside of Minneapolis. And He is running, organizing, and coordinating the ICE Watch program, including recruiting people for patrol dispatch training and even food receiving, packing, and delivery for the shifts. Also, you have several others. State Representative Alex Falconer is part of this. And you also have somebody who sits on the Minnesota or the Minneapolis City Council, and a former Waltz staffer, Senate candidate, and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. If these names check out, there's real problem. That's why they want to set the streets on fire, to make sure they don't go to jail, at least right away. I just want to point out that...
Okay, there you have it, folks. And there's more here, but... Okay, sorry my audio went out. You know, I've heard that one of the definitions of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, my situation is I do the same thing over and over again and I get different results. So I'm not sure. What is that? Because I start the videos and the audio doesn't come through. So explain to me, let me know what that is, because I'm doing the same thing over and over again, yet I am getting different results, rather than insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So I'm not expecting different results, but yet I'm getting them. Anyway, as I was saying on the previous video from Sky News Australia, it's amazing that an Australian station is providing this information, but about Obama, and it's amazing that the Democrats seem to think that was okay for Obama. He deported over 3 million illegal aliens, but that was okay. Trump has maybe done 1 million. I don't think he's hit 1 million yet. He's got a few 100,000, but it's amazing the difference. Democrats can do anything. They can screw you up one side and down the other, and that's okay. But when a Republican tries to do the right thing, oh my goodness, all hell is going to break loose. So there you have it, folks. But this is good information from Glenn Beck. It's organized. It's, as Vince Dow was saying, it's organized, and they need to do this like the FBI. Of course, when the FBI does something and the Democrats running the show and they're going after a Republican, they will notify CNN or MS Now or some network so that they can have all their cameramen there at 5 o'clock in the morning in the dark so that they can film that, kind of like they did with Steve Bannon and others that they arrested. But the hypocrisy and the two-tier justice system is absolutely amazing. Okay, this video does come from Glenn Beck. I've given him a thumbs up. I am subscribed to his channel. I hope you do the same thing, and I hope my audio's coming through. Let me see here. Yeah, I guess my audio is coming through. Okay, let's jump back here and slide down here and see what Wendy Bell has to say in Truckload of Evidence. Okay, let's keep our fingers crossed. Make sure the audio comes through.
I don't understand it.
I think they're preparing for February 2nd.
They're preparing for Dan Bongino, who should rate our stream. I'm going to text him. I'm going to be like, look, bitch. Here's how it's going to go, okay?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well,
I know, I still always want to say good morning. What's going on, everybody? How's it going? Do you know what today is, Brock?
Last news mix.
Yes, it is. I want to say out of the gates with you guys. A lot of you have come over to this show because you might have been flipping through the channels and you might have caught my Newsmax show that it airs on the weekends whenever they find time or whenever it does, whatever it is. And it's been a lot of fun and I very much enjoyed it. And then they put us on N2 for a while, for like 2 years, and you found us there. And then their commercial structure was so frustrating. Hi, Murtek, thank you. That you were like, I can't handle this anymore.
That's what I wanted you to hear. Hi, Murtek, thank you. All right, I backed that up just for that. Okay, let's get back up here to the 7-minute mark. Here we go.
The middle of a hurricane.
No left.
Family, that's not just gone. And we invite Rubio. We're going to talk about his great testimony before the Senate yesterday. We've got a lot to talk about. As Tim Walz and Jacob Fry, apparently they're a little bit worried. I'll tell you why coming up in just a moment. Welcome home, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. I was hearing some of these CNN news babes squawking with some financial people on their sets yesterday, trying to downplay the ridiculous success already in just 1 year that this Trump administration has had economically, right? And the gal, Erin Burnett, I think it was, all she could do was bitch. She was like Ilhan Omar, right? All she could do was bitch and complain, and she was upset about the cost of ground beef, and she was upset about this and upset about that, and I wanted to reach through the camera and be like, look, sweethearts, this isn't Donald Trump's doing. This is 4 years of the idiots that you people supported that now you're complaining about all the effects of. And I thought we should just, before we go anywhere today, just all remember we're on the same page. Don't you find it beyond remarkable that 10 years ago, private citizen Donald Trump made a decision to put his entire everything, including his life, in the crosshairs because he saw something that you and I probably did not. He saw what was coming down the road. He saw what it meant to the future of our country. He was worried about his children and his grandchildren and the trajectory of the greatest place on planet Earth, which everybody and his brother would love to see fail for whatever reason around the world. And that one man went down that escalator and he stood before the world and they mocked him and they ridiculed him and they criticized him and they parodied him and they yucked it up and he won and they knew they were in trouble. Donald Trump saw the danger of the deep state. There's nobody in Congress who could run to do what he can do because they're all connected in some fashion. All of the roads that lead to and out of the U.S. Capitol building. Our senators and Congress people aren't multi-gadzillionaire merely because of insider trading. There are so many grifts, so many scams, so many ways to be corruptible. And that is the crux of the entire bribery and beltway or bribery and blackmail apparatus there. The one person not connected to any of it, who's so far out of it that he's the only one who could come in to fix it. And they tried to kill him. They lied about him, wiretapped him, created fake garbage about him, fake stories about him. Freaking Hillary Clinton masterminded that whole nightmare. Russia, all of it. You've been through it with him. And he came back. And he came back again, and they tried to freaking kill him. And he's like, oh, no. They have no idea. Donald Trump has a mission to fulfill because every single knife that was out was gunning for him. Donald Trump is the one who wants to take the woeful financial situation of more than 100 million Americans who literally have not saved at all for the future. And he wants to fundamentally change that trajectory. He wants to take us, and he campaigned on this, build the wall. They mocked him. Can you imagine if the $8 billion or whatever he asked for had simply been granted and the wall had been built? We wouldn't be in this situation. We wouldn't be paying out of our noses for people who shouldn't be here.
She might be mistaken here because I believe the Biden administration would have frickin' knocked it down. Okay? I wouldn't have put that past them.
Now feel entitled for the free ride to continue forever. Never would have happened. He told us before the caravans ever arrived, they're coming, and they mocked him, and he was right. The one person who I don't believe has been wrong, who I don't feel has lied to me, and who I do believe cares about this thing that you and I love so passionately. You can taste. And it's scary. And he's up against a beast. It is a dark and evil and greedy and narcissistic and afraid. And he is on the doorstep of crushing it. Look, they're going to throw everything they can. They'll make stuff up. Fake stories, fake women, fake allegations of fakeness, right? And the guy who came down that escalator knowing that he was walking into the lion's den, but that there was nobody else who was going to be able to save the path of this country. There he is, fighting every day. He inherited all of this jazz, and they expect him to fix it. And he will. It won't be fast enough for them. It won't be clean enough for them. There won't be a thing he does that they won't find criticism with. But just watch. Watch as America comes back to what you and I want. I want my kids to have what I had. I want them to ride bicycles in the street. I want them to come home when the street lights go on. I want them to be dirty and sweaty and exhausted. Now, mine are grown-ups now, but I want this for you. I want fair taxes. I want safe elections. I want leaders we can believe in, not those who try to sponge off of us. I want danger found, arrested, and thrown out. And I want to be told the truth. That's it. I want to be told the truth. We have a lot to talk about on the program today. The president truthed out something not that long ago. Bad news for Gavin Newsom, but even worse news for the state of California, which 100% virtually Democrat rule has dragged into the ground and buried and is now stomping on. And this is what he said. More bad news for Gavin Newsom, the world's largest employer, Walmart, is closing 250 stores in California, citing $22 per hour minimum wage. This president announced yesterday the savings accounts for babies. Do you know what happens when you give babies who don't know any better $1,000 and then you give them the ability for other people to match that money, family members to give more to that money? It grows and it grows. And when you can't touch it, it grows and it grows beyond your wildest dreams. And then instead of being in debt, you're thinking about what you want to do with your money. You have dreams. The doors open. The sky is the limit. He did that yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. What a difference from the last 4 years, where everything was darkness and mandates and emergencies and browbeating, and it's for the greater good, and pay your fair share. America has paid its fair share, and we're ready for the golden age, my friends. And the left and the rhinos on the right, who know what's coming, are scared to freaking death. When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, why is it that Jacob Fry and Tim Walz have legal defense funds? It's almost like they know. When we come back, let's talk about this. Ilhan Omar, thank God she survived that spritz of apple cider vinegar. You know who she blames for that whole thing? I'll give you one guess. Next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
All right, there we go. Great information. Let's move it up here past her commercial break. And it's unbelievable, the hypocrisy. You know, the Democrats pay your fair share. Yeah, so we can take your fair share and give it to people that come across the border illegally, you know, to open up daycare centers and nursing homes and healthcare centers where they have no customers, but yet they're making millions of dollars off of it. Yeah, let's pay our fair share to the Democrats, okay?
Welcome back to the Wendy Bell radio program. You know, there's like three big stories going on right now. You've got fraud, right? Fraud, abuse, the scams all over the place. Every single zip code. We've got some big ones out there right now, but this is happening in your community. It's got to stop, right? There is such a labyrinth of suck in this country. And I don't know. I think that's the whole bureaucracy too of government. When you've got so much going on, it's easy not to pay attention. It's wild. You have an administration that's willing to roll up its sleeves and to dig into stuff I can't even fathom. So you've got that going on. Then you've got the investigation finally into the 2020 election, right? Specifically, FBI honing in on all of the ballots, Fulton County, Georgia from 2020, all loaded up on trucks and loaded out to Quantico, Virginia FBI headquarters to be evaluated. Finally, it's only taken 5 years, right? And then you've got economic stuff going on. All three of these things, not to mention all of this stuff with Marco Rubio and Venezuela stuff. It's amazing. And so, right? Donald Trump's right in the middle of all the household stuff, touring the country to talk about affordability. I want you to know some of the people who have been picked off the street of Minnesota. As Jacob Fry and Tim Walz have said repeatedly, they really don't want to comply. Apparently, Brock, you had some new information that just came in regarding that. It seems like Tom Homan has struck an agreement with Minnesota Democrat officials to hand over public safety threat illegal aliens to ICE. Look, that's all they ever wanted. That was the whole crux of the operation. This is what Donald Trump ran on. We got to get these people out, right? Let's talk about some of the people that have been picked up in Minnesota. Well, there's one who beat up a pregnant woman. That's nice. That's wonderful. These are people I want to protest on the street and put my life in danger for, right? A dude beats up a pregnant woman. How about this guy? The rap sheets of some of the arrestees, including Justin Neal Shelton. He was booked on obstruction charges. This guy pled guilty. These are just the protesters. He pled guilty to a charge of first-degree aggravated robbery after prosecutors say he beat up a pregnant woman while he and another individual were trying to steal her car. Well, it's kind of like George Floyd, isn't it? Didn't he hold a gun to a pregnant woman's belly? Like, could you choose all of the wrong people to put your eggs in the basket of, right? So we've got progress going on in Minneapolis, which is terrible news for the Democrats. They need another Alex Pretti. They need another Renee Good. They've got to keep the fire smoldering so that you're distracted with the smoke in your eyes, right? Meantime, thank goodness, I know you guys were very concerned. And that just talks about how good and decent you are. Ilhan Omar is going to make a full recovery. I know a lot of you were worried about that spritz of dressing of some nature, apple cider vinegar that she got on her. You got to hear how she handles this situation. The actors, whether they're actually American citizens or become them, and we have to wonder if she actually ever did, if we want to be real about her birth certificate and all that. I love how these are the people who are going to then point fingers elsewhere and blame who else? Donald Trump. Democrat Rep Ilhan Omar Wednesday evening blamed President Trump for the apple cider vinegar attack. This is how bad it's become, okay? This is how low it's gotten. President Trump and others speculated that the so-called attack on Ilhan Omar was staged to distract from the probe into her mysterious jump in personal wealth. That's one word for it. A man identified as 55-year-old Anthony Kamerzik charged a Democrat Rep Ilhan Omar. I would say he was more of a stagger. I don't know if he was having a seizure, drunk, I'm not sure, right? And then tried to spritz some stuff at her, sprayed her with apple cider vinegar. And she's much better. I'm good. I'm happy to tell you that. So this is what Omar said. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem must resign or face impeachment. That triggered the guy. Spritz. Oh no, she was spritzed by something, right? And then, of course, here's classy till the very end, Ilhan Omar. We will continue. What a hero. She's wrapped in the American flag in your mind, right? She's all about, we'll continue. You won't prevent us from fighting to steal more of your money and give it to the Somali population that was imported to America to rip off all of our welfare systems and fleece the American taxpayer for tens of billions. We will not quit. Right? And then she goes, this effing a-hole is not about to get away with it. Get away with what, Ilhan? You're going down, okay? Poor Tim Walz. We hear his wife was seen walking out of a divorce attorney's office. Apparently, he doesn't have a whole lot to divorce him for or to get. I guess he's like the only person in Minnesota who hasn't gotten rich off of the American taxpayer, right? So pay attention to all these things as, by the way, now, if you've got a few bucks to spare. Tim Walz and Jacob Fry could use it. Liz Collin putting out on X last night. This is what it says. In Minneapolis, we stand by our neighbors. Right now, our city is facing an unprecedented federal immigration enforcement action that has disrupted daily life. Yeah. See, I don't think so. If you can click here. Who wants to tell them? You know, Donald Trump was in the hole for $10, $20 million with all of his legal wranglings at the hands of depraved Democrats. It's going to cost a little bit of money for these fellows to defend themselves when all of the prosecutor's evidence comes out about whistleblowers stepping forward 6 years ago and saying, Governor, Mr. Mayor, you guys need to pay attention. And they were like, meh. Good luck, boys. When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, this Fulton County thing is for real. We've been talking about election malfeasance questions like blind people could see. Finally, let's get some answers. Next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here, and I will remind you that this video will be in my daily news wrap-up, the top of the list, so you'll get to hear the rest of this if you just hang in here with me. Okay. Clicking on the Rumble link, it does take us to Wendy Bell Radio video that I just shared with you. I am following her channel. I've given her a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, jumping back here, folks, these videos that I've shared with you are videos that come directly from the producers. I've got the links to the videos as well as the links to the producer's channel. I share this information out so that you can get some no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth. I try to help you so that you don't have to surf the internet for this news. I do the surfing for you. I don't get any commissions or royalties for sharing this information out. I do it as, I guess, a public service. And these videos that I share with you are videos that I've posted here on Murtech.com. where I have over 55 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. And I'd like to share all this information with you, but unfortunately, I don't have the time to do so, and that's why I've put together my daily news wrap-up playlist. Okay, I'm going to have Wendy Bell here at the top of the list. I've got to do some rearranging here. I've got X22 report, On the Fringe, SGT report, McWater's Effect, Megyn Kelly, Devory Darkins. I've got some Dr. Steve Turley in here, Benny Johnson, Black Conservative Perspective, the Charlie Kirk Show. I've got 25 videos in here, about 8 or 9 hours worth of information. But go ahead and take a break right now. I'll be back here about 9:30. Grab a donut and a cup of coffee, or a sandwich and a soft drink, or a beer, or a nice glass of wine and some cheese. Give me a chance to rearrange my playlist here and get Wendy Bell on top and set up my Rumble studio, and we'll get this going for you. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for being with me. Hopefully, I will get to see you again later. Whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, what? Just 1 minute here. Let me jump back here and let me copy these live chats into a comment. I almost forgot to do that. There we go. Because when I think it's important that these live chats are included in this video, and when this live stream is over, those live chats just kind of evaporate into hyperspace. Get everybody in here. Ellen C., Susie Poll 2016, Uncloudy, Deb BS, M41 Coco, and Foxy Grandma. I really appreciate your chats. Thank you very much. So there we go. You're permanent. All right. Now, as I was saying, I do want to thank you for your time. Hopefully, I will get to see you again later. And may God bless.